Is back into it in Chester. Here's El Senior. Yes! Yes!
The center back, Jacob Glesnes, is going for it.
Oh my God! What a goal! And that will do it! One of the best comebacks in recent years. 3 unanswered by the Union. And they go into the Gold Cup break, winning it 3.
Hello, welcome to the Free Kick Podcast. My name is Todd. First off, I just want to say congratulations to Jordan Angeli for getting her score prediction right for the Columbus Crew versus Philadelphia Union game. She was spot on when she said 2-1. She had a feeling the Union were going to score. And for myself, I did not believe the Union were going to score just because of how well Columbus played defensively. But I would also say, if you haven't already, go ahead and check out that episode because in my opinion, that was probably my favorite podcast that I've recorded. I know I've done 77 podcasts now covering the Union, and yeah, there's been a lot of good ones, a lot of great episodes that I've been very, very proud of. But I think up to right now, I think that one with Jordan is probably my favorite one. Just the knowledge that she brings, the information that she pours out, and yeah, it was such a great honor and privilege to be able to speak to Jordan for about 30, 35 minutes. And yeah, I mean, even though that game, we already know what happens in that Union versus Crew game, why not go ahead and check out that episode? I mean, there's just a lot of good information there. She knows what she's talking about. She's one of the best, in my opinion, in MLS at, just talking about soccer and MLS. And just because she works for the Crew doesn't mean, oh, yeah, I'm not going to go ahead and check out her other projects with MLS Assist and the US Soccer Podcast. Now she's doing an excellent job with everything that she's doing. And so I would go ahead, like I said, and encourage you guys to listen to that episode if you haven't already. And yeah, it sucks. The Union lost against Columbus. And I know there were a ton of fans on social media losing their head right after that game. I think somebody started a petition that said Matt Freese in goal over Joe Bendick against New England Revolution. I was like, wow, like a minute and there's already a petition going around on Twitter asking for people to sign this. Like, you guys don't mess around. And yeah, that's kind of why I wanted to wait a couple days after the game to record, because yeah, I probably would have been just losing my mind, losing my head with just steam coming out of my ears, my nose. And yeah, it's upsetting, that game. It really is upsetting, but I figured let me go ahead and take a day, 2 days to think about this game, come on here, think about what I can say, because we know it's not fun when the Union lose, and they haven't done it often this season, but it's just so crazy when it seems like we get to lose. People go back to like this team's a losing team, that they have a losing record, that this team's not good at all, and that's not the case at all. It's, you guys will hear my thoughts on the Columbus game. I don't have to go ahead and get into that right now because there is a lot of thoughts, and I thank you to 6-7 people that asked for listener questions. I'll get to them. There's plenty of them, and I'll do things a little bit differently and not really talk about the good, the bad. So I'll go straight into news, my overall thoughts on the Columbus Union game, blunder of the week, and then, like I said, a ton of listener questions. I always feel bad, too, because I think whenever I get listener questions, sometimes I call them fan questions. I'm like, after the fact, I'm like, should I be calling you guys fans of the podcast? Probably not. Listeners are definitely what I should be calling you guys. I mean, I don't know. I guess technically, if you're listening to the podcast, I guess technically you're a fan. But yeah, listener questions sounds a lot better than fan questions. But without further ado, let's just go straight into the news. So starting off, I will talk about the 2020 CONCACAF Champions League. It was announced that it will resume. So there's a couple points to the CONCACAF Champions League coming back for 2020. Number one, there will be a single location for the tournament in the United States. The quarterfinals will be played on December 15th and 16th. The ties that had first legs played will continue with the second legs being played as normal. And the thing about that is, so the teams that are going to play the first legs, any of the away goals scored, this is something that I don't agree with personally, is when they play that second leg, they're going to count the away goals. Like, I feel like if you're playing at a neutral venue, you should just count goals as goals. Like, I can definitely understand, if you now that team's traveling to the other team's stadium. Like, I get keeping away goals for that, but like when you're making a neutral stadium, I'm not really sure why you would think it's best to keep the away goals. And for all those teams that already played their first leg, it's going to be interesting. It's definitely going to be an interesting case. I do also think that it was smart that, okay, right after the MLS season, that the quarterfinals are going to begin for Champions League. It's not like these teams are going to have a long layoff. They're going to be fresh off playing games. And I think a lot of times we see when the CONCACAF Champions League first starts, a lot of these teams in Mexico, they haven't played in a while because the season's over, and MLS, you would think, should have the advantage having a preseason, but more times than not, it seems like, all the teams from Central America always beats up on the North American soccer teams. And it's going to be interesting watching these games be played super duper fast. And I'm happy that there's going to be a 2020 winner announced, because that means right after that, then 2021 CONCACAF Champions League will happen, and hopefully the Union will secure a spot. I know there's all these different scenarios, what it takes for the Union to win the Shield, to get a CONCACAF Champions spot for 2021. It's really simple. All the Union have to do is beat New England on Sunday, and you're the Supporters Shield champion. You guys get a spot in the CONCACAF 2021 season, and you get home field advantage throughout the playoffs. So, I know, like I said, there's just all these different scenarios, but just win. It's literally all you have to do. You control your destination. Just win, just win, just win. But I'm not here to talk about that New England-Philadelphia Union game. Obviously, I'm here to talk about the Columbus game. And just going back to this 2020 CONCACAF Champions League resuming, LAFC and Cruz Azul will be just a one-leg tie, because remember, COVID started and they didn't have their tie yet. So they're not going to play two legs. You're just going to play one game, and whoever wins that game is going to go on to the semifinals. And the semifinals will start December 19th, and the final will be December 22nd. And both of those games will be single-leg games. So CONCACAF is not wasting any time in trying to get these games played and made up, because like I said, before we know it, CONCACAF 2021 is going to be here, and hopefully it will be the Philadelphia Union participating for the first time ever in that tournament. And the last bit of news I want to talk about is Union news related. So obviously I'm going to assume all you guys have probably seen this by now, that Andre Blake got surgery on his fractured hand on Monday, and that surgery is supposed to take time to heal between 2.5 weeks to recover from, as opposed to if he didn't get that surgery, and then it would take 4 weeks. So hopefully Andre Blake's hand heals up nicely like the way they hope it should. He'll be back for the playoffs, and we don't have to worry about Joe Bendik. And don't worry, yes, I'm going to go ahead and give my thoughts on Joe Bendik, but it sucks, I don't think Andre Blake's injury is as bad as we thought it was going to be. I know Jim Curtin was pretty optimistic, saying that, I think Andre can return some point this season. And you see people like, I'm a doctor. I know how these injuries take. Yeah, he's not coming back for the season. Or I did this, and this is the after effects of fracturing my hand. It's like, it's great and everything to have all your different opinions, but unless you actually see the fracture and everything, you don't really know. So, you just got to trust Jim that everything will heal up the way it's supposed to be, and by the time the playoffs start, Andre Blake will be back and will be confident in goal again. But let's go ahead and just hear my thoughts on the Columbus Crew versus Philadelphia Union game. Like we all know, that game ended 2-1, and I just want to get this out of the way real quick, because it's what everybody's talking about on social media. I mean, Joe Bendik, everybody's saying, we want Matt Freese as the goalie, not Joe Bendik. Joe Bendik's terrible. And look, I think I think we should have known that we were in for a rough day when the first shot that Joe Bendik takes, he spills the ball. And he's luckily no Columbus player crashed the ball because it could have been an easy tap in. Now, granted, it was super duper windy. The game was cold and it was raining, it was snowing, and I'm sure you know, as a goalkeeper, your hands get pretty slippery, and the wind definitely has an effect on the ball. But the first shot Columbus takes, seeing Joe Bendik spill the ball, it's like, oh man, not feeling confident. After seeing him come in shaky against Chicago, you're like, here we go, first shot, Joe Bendik takes on goal. He spills it. And look, the one thing that I did not realize, and I'm sure probably a lot of you guys didn't realize too, I mean, this has been going around on social media. Joe Bendik in his last 23 games, he has 0 wins, 2 draws, and 21 losses. That is god-awful. And honestly, you know, I don't know how much Jim Curtin knew about that record. I'm sure Joe Bendik doesn't think about that record because, you know, when you're a professional goalkeeper or just a professional soccer player or athlete in general, you're not going to think about things like that because, yeah, those mind games can be serious. And for a goalie to think, yeah, wow, my last 23 games I played in MLS, I've yet to get a win. And if you go in with that mindset, bad things are going to happen. So I don't think Joe Bendik went out there like, okay, I'm getting the starting spot. I haven't won an MLS game in 23 games, but that doesn't matter. Yeah, I don't think Joe was thinking about that because if Joe had any indication that he was showing that he was shaky, that he was going to have mind games, Jim Curtin wouldn't have started him. I think on the first goal, Kai let down Joe by not closing down Artur faster. He should have been closed down. The shot should never even have happened, or it should have been a block shot. And then looking at Joe Bendik, he had plenty of time, in my opinion, to see that ball. I think his reactions were late, and it sucks. It sucks because it's a save that any goalkeeper probably should have made. Andre Blake, we know, more than likely would have made the save. Now, if this was the Andre Blake from last year, yeah, I'm not sure how confident I would have been. And I was telling one of my friends, I was like, yeah, isn't this funny where last year at the beginning of 2020, I'm like, yeah, we need a new goalkeeper where none of us felt confident in Andre Blake. I'm like, yeah, maybe the Union should start looking at a new goalkeeper because Andre Blake just seems like he's had it. I just can't believe all the mistakes he made last year. And now here we are seeing Andre Blake have an MVP season. And if people didn't believe that Andre Blake was our MVP, this game's all the proof that you need. I think Andre Blake's been responsible for saving 8 or 9 points for us for this season. And not only MVP for the Union, but I just think throughout MLS, I think he should be considered MVP strongly. Watching this game, people should look, wow, Andre Blake wasn't in this game, and look what happened. Now, granted, I don't think Andre Blake's going to get MVP because goalkeepers hardly ever do, and I'm not even sure if a goalkeeper has an MLS. I have to go back and check. But with Andre Blake missing the final 2 games of the season, yeah, that's going to hurt him. I do still think Pozuelo for Toronto is going to win Player of the Season. Dude's been unbelievable, but, you know, when the Union played him, shut him down. And you know who else they shut down in this game was Zodes. They shut down Zelarayan, in my opinion. And if you go back and look at my keys to the game, I know we were just talking about Joe Bendik, and now I'm going to keys to the game. And I'll get back to Joe Bendik because I do definitely still have some thoughts. But my 3 keys for Union victory were, number 1, don't let Zelarayan shoot from distance. The Union did a good job just tracking him, shutting him down. Zelarayan didn't hurt the Union at all. So I would say the Union, they passed with that. Point number 2, I said, Joe Bendik has to be more decisive. Definitely a fail because that second goal that Joe Bendik gave up, I have no clue what he was doing, honestly. His positioning was just so bad on that second goal. He was at his near post, and then he had to backtrack backwards when the ball got crossed in. I don't know why he wasn't expecting the cross. I mean, he should have been. He should have been in the center of the goal. But for whatever reason, his positioning was horrible. I know people were saying, Jacob Glesnes should have held Naismith offside. Jacob Glesnes could have done better on that, but I think just ultimately it was all on Joe Bendik. If his positioning was better, I think if he wasn't going to catch the ball, he could have at least hit it out for a corner kick. I mean, would have been in better position, in my opinion, if he would have just stayed central, but he wasn't, and it sucks, but it is what it is, and I don't have too much more to say about Joe Bendik. I know people ask me and listen to questions about Joe Bendik, so I guess I'll talk about this a little bit later on. But yeah, Joe Bendik, that was a fail. I think he was definitely indecisive at times. And point number 3, I said you got to win the midfield battle, and I do believe, in my opinion, the Union did win that midfield battle. That they weren't flashy, but they were causing mistakes from Columbus. Jack Elliott, he's not going to be an engine going forward, tracking back, just fast-paced guy. He's not El Brujo, but I thought on the day he did enough. And it is, I guess, a little bit concerning when Jack Elliott had the third most shots on the team with 3. And he was getting himself in good positioning. So, I mean, that is good to see. The Union, they won the aerial battle in the midfield, that they dispossessed Columbus multiple times in the midfield. I believe they dispossessed Columbus 9 times in this game. They won the tackle battle in the midfield. Jamiro Montero was everywhere. He played a fantastic game. Good penalty. But it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough, like I said. With Artur's shot should have been shut down by Kai Wagner. Better positioning by Joe Bendik. And who knows what could have happened. And, after the Union tied this game up too, I was thinking, all of the momentum right now is with the Union. They've got to score a second goal here. Because Columbus, they're pinned back in their own half. They're struggling with this pressure. The Union are doing good on corner kicks, which I can't believe, like we were seeing that. Like, I tweeted, I was like, yeah, this feels weird tweeting that the Union are actually dangerous on corner kicks in this game. And what happens? The Union don't capitalize. They should have capitalized and had 22 shots in this game. And maybe that's a bigger story than what Joe Bendik did. I mean, 22 shots, it's a ton of chances. And to only have 9 of their shots on target, it's not great. Hitting the post 2 times, I believe, this game. Yeah, it's not great. Casper hitting the post, which I know that was a question, which I'll get to later on. Yeah, it sucks. I mean, we had chances. We can't say that we didn't create chances. We looked a lot better, in my opinion, the second time that we played Columbus than we did the first time. It's definitely an unfortunate way how this game ended, where I think the Union totally dominated every aspect of this game, but goalkeeping. Eloy Ram, MVP on the day for the Crew. Just fantastic. 8 saves. And he made crucial saves. These weren't easy saves to make. Some of these shots were really, really difficult. And he made it look easy. And if this was any other goalkeeper other than Matt Turner, in my opinion, I think they would have been goals for the Union. I really do. And for people, yeah, I mean, it's just so easy to blame Joe Bendik. I mean, I can go back and look also at Elsinio for turning the ball over, not running to the ball to collect it, to send Columbus on the counterattack, because, playing youth soccer, playing high school soccer, playing college soccer, I don't care what it is. How many times has a coach said, come to the ball, don't let the ball come to you? And what does Elsinio do? He waits for the ball to come to him. He didn't go to the ball. And the Columbus player notices, okay, he's taking his time letting the ball come. I'm just going to run in here, steal the ball, and start the counterattack, and Kai Wagner got caught out of positioning, which I mentioned before in past episodes, where that tends to happen sometimes when the Union turn off over the ball. Kai Wagner is pushed up so far up on the left side of the field that sometimes the left side of the field for the Union is disorganized. The opposition have an advantage because Kai's caught out of position and nobody went to occupy that space on the left other than Jack Elliott. And like I said, I mean, it's just so easy to blame Joe Bendik, but you can look at things that led up to the goals and you're like, yeah, if El Senior would have came to the ball, if Kai Wagner would have been in position to stop that, if Kai Wagner would have been in position to stop the shot from Artur, if Jacob Glesnes would have done this. I mean, it's so easy to look at everything else, and as fans, you're like, oh, the goalkeeper gave up 2 goals. It's on the goalkeeper. And sometimes you just really got to look up to what happened prior to them scoring the goal, the build-up, and it's not all on Joe Bendik, in my opinion. I really don't think it is all on Joe Bendik. It's so easy to say it is. And look, Jonathan Mensah, I said it last episode. I said he should probably win Defender of the Season over Mark McKenzie. Well, Mensah, he had 2 big mistakes in this game. One, Ram, he saved his butt when Casper stole the ball off of Mensah, and Ram luckily was paying attention and was in position to make the save. And 2, he gave away that penalty to Sergio Santos. Sergio Santos looked fantastic in this game, even though he didn't score, even though didn't get an assist. He was making those runs, causing havoc for the defenders of the Columbus Crew. Draws a penalty kick, and it's not going to show up on the stat sheet, but without Sergio making that run, tracking back throughout this game, trying to win back the ball for the Union, you know, who knows if that mistake would have happened, if Mensah would have made a mistake, if Sergio wasn't hustling this whole game, I thought. You know, Corey Burke came into this game slow, you know, didn't seem like he had an extra pep in his step like we saw against Chicago. You could tell that guy was ready. You could tell that he was going to score, but this game when he came on, yeah, he seemed a little bit slow. He wasn't caught up to speed like everybody else was. And that's a difficult thing, coming off the bench, trying to make an instant impact. And it doesn't happen all the time. And Corey Burke definitely wasn't what he was against Chicago. And I know that's easy to say because, you know, he scored a goal against Chicago, didn't against Columbus. But even if he wouldn't have scored the goal, you know, he was making good runs. You could tell he was looking sharp. And, yeah, that just wasn't the case against Columbus. And, you know, just one more thing I want to say about Joe Bendik before I answer fan questions and Blunder of the Week. Jim said in his press conference after the game, he said, Joe kicked the ball well for us. Like, Jim was happy that Joe was kicking the ball. And so I went and looked, and I was surprised that Jim gave Joe so much credit for 9 out of 21 accurate passes, 5 out of 17 accurate long balls. That's not good at all for a goalkeeper, where a goalkeeper is only completing 43% of his passes. Yeah, it's not amazing. But other than that, you know, the Union passed the ball well, in my opinion. They did. And maybe, again, to Joe Bendik's credit, with it being so windy, maybe that's why his ball wasn't getting to Union players. But, yeah, I thought it was weird that Jim Curtin came out and said, yeah, he kicked the ball well from us, when I could think multiple times when Joe turned the ball over. And I was like, yeah, let me go ahead and look up these stats. 9 out of 21 accurate passes, 5 out of 17 accurate long balls. Not good enough at all. And last thing I want to say about this game is, like I was saying, 22 shots for the Union. You know, I've said this so many times in the past, and I feel like until this season's over and probably into next season, it's still going to be a theme. People take way too many touches. I feel like Brendan Aronson should have a lot more assists than he does right now on the season. I believe he's at 7. Yeah, 7 assists. He is. I'm glad I had that pulled up. He's on 7 assists. I feel like he could definitely be in double digits by now if Casper would just one-time the ball. And yeah, it gets really frustrating. I think when Brendan does go to Salzburg, we'll see his assists take off, in my opinion, where, no offense to the players we have here in Philadelphia, just we all know if the players were good enough to be playing in Europe, they would have their chance in Europe still. And yeah, I think Brendan's teammates in Salzburg are definitely going to take one touches. They're going to a one-time finish where you see Casper, you see Sergio take multiple touches to try to get themselves in a better position. And then by the time they touch the ball 2-3 times, when they could have shot it the first time, that angle is already taken away by the opposition's defender. And so then they lay over the pass to somebody else, hoping that they can get themselves in good position. Well, by the time that happens, the defense is already organized. So, yeah, I mean, I hate repeating myself, but I'm sure at the same time, we're all tired of seeing the same thing over and over again. And yeah, just 22 shots. 22 shots. I think that and Eloy Ram, I think that was the difference. Yeah, it's, like I said, easy to point the finger at Joe Bendik, but and that's just my overall thoughts and everything from the game. So I do want to go ahead and give Blunder of the Week. I can't remember if I gave that last episode or not, but yeah, my blunder of the week for this week is going to go to the LA Galaxy for signing Javier Chicharito Hernandez. He's only played 9 times this season for the Galaxy. And in those 9 games, he has 0 goals. And there's rumors out there that, yeah, the LA Galaxy are ready to move on to find another new striker. Didn't work out with Dos Santos. It's not working out with Chicharito. I think it was great from a marketing standpoint. But, I mean, they had to have known that he didn't do anything at Sevilla, the club they brought him from. He didn't do anything at West Ham. This guy hasn't been what he's been for years. And for them to think, one, for LA Galaxy to pay $9 million to Sevilla for Javier Hernandez compared to the $8.5 million that I believe Sevilla paid to West Ham to obtain Chicharito. It's like this guy was doing nothing for Sevilla, and here's LA Galaxy paying more than what Sevilla paid. So Sevilla's making a profit. I don't know. I mean, I'm not a Galaxy supporter. I know Sal listens to the podcast, who is a Galaxy supporter, and I'm sure, Sal, you probably have a lot of opinions about Chicharito. And the reports out there are saying that the Galaxy wanted to move him to Chivas, where Chicharito used to play, but they'd be taking such a big loss for the salary that they're paying for the transfer fee that they want to give Chicharito one more chance to prove that, yeah, this was the right signing. So if he doesn't play well next season, then we're going to terminate the contract, which, I mean, it must be nice to have that amount of money where you pay $9 million for a transfer fee. And then I think Chicharito makes between $7.5 million. Second highest paid player in MLS. Yeah, it must be nice to be able to throw away that money like it's nothing. Because, man, if LA Galaxy had themselves a Ernst Tenner, there's no way in the world any club in their right mind would sign Chicharito when he hasn't been the same player that we saw in his earlier days. It's just not the same player, and it's their problem. I mean, it's not ours. So hey, Galaxy fans, I mean, it's just crazy. I mean, not even with Chicharito, just firing the manager, seeing LA Galaxy be as bad as they were. And I guess that really shows you how much that Zlatan carried this team last year with his goals and his personality, keeping the team together. Because in my opinion, yeah, there is nobody on this LA Galaxy team that's a leader that's keeping this team intact. Christian Pavon, I believe, is going back to Boca Juniors when the Galaxy season's over. But I don't know, maybe LA Galaxy says, yeah, let's just go ahead and pay what Boca wants and we'll make Christian permanent. I mean, I don't know why he wouldn't, because he's been the Galaxy's best player this season. But what a mess that franchise is. Don't feel sorry for them because they've had a lot of success in MLS. But yeah, it's mind-blowing to me that LA Galaxy would pay that much money for for Chicharito, and he would only play 9 games this season, no goals. He's missed so many chances this season. Terrible, terrible signing. And like I said, great from a marketing standpoint. Going to sell a lot of jerseys, but yeah, selling jerseys doesn't help the performance on the field. And Chicharito is definitely not helping the LA Galaxy at all on the field. So like I said, have about 7 listener questions, so I want to get straight to them. And the first question comes from me on Twitter from @JimCurtinBurner. He said, why no win? And I think I already answered that when I was giving my overall thoughts. Just Ram, 8 saves. What else needs to be said? 8 saves. Like I said, they weren't easy saves at all. Hitting the post multiple times hurt. Could have won. Probably should have won. But Eloy Ram had something completely different to say for this game, and that's why Columbus go on and win this game 2-1. Pat Andrews asked also on Twitter, would Jose Martinez have made a difference? Should we be let down with Casper's miss? And I'll start with El Brujo first. We're 5-2-2 without El Brujo. We're 8-3-2 with him. So 3 draws, 2 losses, 2 draws, 2 losses with him. So even when we don't have him, we're winning games. But I think any casual fan could tell you we're not the same team. I mean, Jack Elliott isn't no El Brujo. The engine on Martinez is just unbelievable. To watch him get for it, to get back, the dude doesn't get tired. And I feel a lot more confident with Martinez joining the attack than I do Jack Elliott. Not saying Jack Elliott won't get back in positioning, but if we are caught out of positioning, Martinez is going to be one of the first players back there, and we know he's not afraid to get a yellow card, but like Jordan Angeli said last episode, whenever the Union get themselves in trouble, they're always looking for that outlet ball to Martinez, who then's looking for the runner, whether that be Jamir Montero, whether that be Sergio, whether that be Casper. This guy's just always involved in our attacks, in our defensive plays. He's been such a great player for us, and yeah, it hurts not having him. Jack Elliott, in my opinion, is a lot better than having Warren Creval out there playing as the number 6, but Jack's best position is as a center back. And not having the pace out there, not having that grit that Martinez brings every game, it does hurt. It absolutely does hurt. And hopefully we'll see him against New England. And I know FIFA is going to continue with this international break. In November, El Brujo has already been called up again to Venezuela. Jim said, look, there's nothing we can do. This is on FIFA. This was their call. So it's going to suck to have him go away. Hopefully he doesn't get injured, and we'll be fine. But yeah, we're a completely different team when we don't have El Brujo out there. And I think he would have made the difference. I know last time out he didn't play great, but I think the first goal, I think he would have shut down Artur. And I know that was Kai Wagner's guy, but I just think, this guy is always over the field. Any place on the field for us. He's always shutting down teams. And yeah, I think he definitely would have made a difference. And just like I said, look at the record. Won a lot more games with El Brujo than we haven't. And granted, we've played more games with him than we have without him. But yeah, I just believe he definitely would have made a difference. And his second question was, should we be let down with Casper's miss? Now, this is something I've been meaning to talk about on Twitter. This is something I've been meaning to talk about in previous podcasts. I'm seeing a lot of hate for Casper online. And yes, we should be disappointed that Casper stole the ball off of Menza, didn't score. Ram made a good save. Casper probably should have scored. And then hitting the post. Yeah, it's disappointing. And like I said, Casper is one of those players too who at times takes too many touches when he should just one-time it. But people are so fast to say Casper's terrible, Casper's trash. The partnership between Casper and Sergio Santos, it's not good at all. And a lot of people just look at goals. But Casper is so much more than that. He has 6 assists on the season as a striker. And the main reason Casper is thrown out there every single game, no matter if he scores a goal or not, is because, in my opinion, he's the best player we have out there to hold up the ball. He'll hold up the ball and pass it on to Brendan, making that run in behind him. Sergio Santos making that run in behind. Because Sergio Santos isn't going to give you that hold-up play. Andrew Wooten, I guess, would be the next closest. But, yeah, we all know Andrew Wooten's not starting unless we lose both Casper and Sergio to injuries or whatnot. But just people are so fast to jump on his back. 7 goals, 6 assists. Yeah, you want more goals as a striker, of course. You want a striker to have double-digit goals every single year, but 6 assists isn't bad at all for a striker. And if you look up the fact that Casper is so much more than assists, he's doing so much more than what's showing up on the stat sheet. He's running out into the channels. He's getting played in, long balls over the top, chasing one to them. His hold-up play is top notch. And both of those things don't show up in the stat sheets. You know, he'll drop deep at the halfway line to collect the ball to try to start something. No other striker on this team does that. Casper is so much more than scoring goals, and it sucks. And yes, we should be disappointed. You know, there's been multiple times this season where I feel like last year Casper would be putting the ball in the back of the net, but for whatever reason, he's not finishing his chances. But I'm not worried because he's doing a lot of things, like I said, that don't show up on the stat sheets, that a lot of people are easy to overlook. And like I said about Joe Bendik, it's so easy to point the fingers because, you know, you gave up goals, and it's so easy to point the finger at Casper. You're not scoring goals. But he's doing so much more than not scoring goals. And I think that makes up for not scoring the goals because he's getting the assist of the assist or the assist of the assist of the assist. And him and Sergio Santos have a really, really good understanding of how each other wants to play, who's going to make what run. And that's something that you don't want to disrupt. So, yeah, it's okay to be let down that he hit the post, that he had a couple chances that he should have scored, but I'm not too concerned. Next question comes from Andrew K. on Twitter. He says, how concerned are you with the absence of Andre Blake and El Brujo? The good news is Jim Curtin said we should get El Brujo back against New England. So I'm not worried about that. The only thing I guess I'm worried about is if he plays this time with Venezuela, if he comes back injured. But that's for any player that goes away on international duty. You always worry, hopefully they don't come back injured. And other than that, I'm not worried about El Brujo. And with Andre Blake getting surgery, should be back by the time the playoffs start for us. So I do feel good about that. It sucks that it comes down to one game for us to win the Supporters' Shield at home, and it's like, who do you start? Matt Freese, Joe Bendik. And I think ultimately, unless Jim says otherwise, I think it's going to be Joe Bendik in goal again. Because he has experience. And that record, like I said, to have no wins in 23 games, that's really, really concerning. Something I had no clue about until I started seeing people post about this. But I want to see us win our first trophy in team history. And I don't want to talk too much about the New England game until I review it. But I'm not going to talk about that New England game. Joe Bendik is going to have to show up. He's going to have to show up against New England and be a lot more confident, and hopefully the fans will be behind him against New England, and hopefully we don't give him stick because it's so easy watching people turn on their own players. And Joe Bendik knows that he messed up. His last 2 games that he played in for the Union, that he was shaky. And the last thing he needs is fans booing him, turning on him, because that's really going to help his confidence. So hopefully people don't turn on Joe Bendik in person, and hopefully he's a good guy and stays off social media seeing what everybody's saying about him. Because, I don't know, as of late, you look at multiple sports, you see players complaining about how their team's playing. Like, social media is definitely deadly for players, for your confidence, for your mental health. Like, even with not just athletes, like, social media is just so toxic. And that's the last thing that Joe Bendik needs to do, is go on social media and read what people are saying about him. So, yeah, I'm concerned that we're not going to have Andre Blake against New England in the biggest game in team history. But as long as everything goes well, we should have Andre Blake back for the playoffs. So, just for this game, yeah, I'm nervous, but hey, we gotta support Joe Bendik. Question comes from Jordan Ashby. He asks, with different personnel in that midfield, do we need width rather than clogging up the gut? Now, honestly, I'm fine with us playing a 4-2 diamond. I really am, and I've said multiple times on the podcast before, I think that we should have went out and maybe got a DP number 10. We should have got another midfield piece. I think that's going to be an area that Ernst Tanner addresses in the wintertime. But to go with more width, we really don't have anybody that can stretch the field to go with that width. I guess technically you can put El Senior out on the right, El Senior Sergio Santos on the left to get width that way. But no, El Senior is not going to give you the pace. Sergio is going to give you the pace, but I think that's why last season when we were able to go from a 4-2-2 to a 4-3-2-1, I think that's why that was so effective last year. Was 4-2-3-1, I think it was. Kind of the same thing, right? I think having Fafa Pico, that's why it was easy for us to adjust to that formation, because Fafa is more of a winger than he is a striker. And we don't really have a winger on this team. I guess technically Jack DeVries could be considered a winger. But yeah, a rookie in a game where you need a goal against one of the best teams in MLS, you're not going to throw him out there. So yeah, I don't think we need width rather than clogging up the gut when we're putting out Jack Elliott out there to play the number 6. Because the diamond, when it works good. And Jack Elliott's shown that, yeah, he's not going to have the pace. He's not going to have the offensive threat that El Brujo possesses for the Union. But he does a good enough job holding down the number 6, protecting the back line, in my opinion. So, yeah, I want to go with width rather than clogging up the middle, playing the diamond. I just want him personally. So this next question comes from Renee Turner on Twitter. And he asks, is Ernst Tanner's first foray into buying domestic talent from within MLS an absolute and total bust? By the way, I'm not counting Colin or Akam in this because I'm not sure how much Tanner had to do with those. In quotations, he thinks that Chris Albright had more of a say in those 2 signings, and RJ Allen was never much more than a practice squad player. So I think I've talked about this previously with Justin Friedberg, who also has a question into me, which I'll get to that after Renee's. I said earlier in the season, I would have loved to have seen the Union go after a Rowe for New England. It's not a flashy midfielder piece, not a big signing whatsoever, but he has MLS experience. He was a free agent. I think he's one of those guys where, for the last 20 minutes, 25 minutes of a game, be a good option bringing off the bench. He's not going to make a difference for you, but he's not going to hurt your team. He's like Ricky Zelfro says, a glue guy. He's a perfect glue guy. And I guess Ernst Tanner's only domestic signing in MLS is Joe Bendik. And yeah, I guess we can call that a bust because he let us down against Columbus. And maybe I'm misinterpreting your question completely, Renee. And if I am, I definitely apologize for that. But I just think it comes down to the only players that earns trust that are MLS, you can't even call them MLS experience. The only players that earns trust are academy players, I feel like. Because if he trusts domestic players in MLS, I feel like he would have made signings. I think he would have made trades for MLS players from other teams at the trade deadline. But it's pretty telling when he'd much rather buy young players in Europe, rather continue to develop his own players rather than going out to sign a player that has MLS experience. He tried it with Joe Bendik, and when we needed Joe Bendik against Columbus, we got let down. And maybe Joe Bendik lets us down against New England. Hopefully not. But Ernst Tanner, we all know he killed the draft, could care less about the draft. And I think it's just pretty obvious that he could care less about signing players in MLS. And it's, I guess you can call it a bust. But I'm not really sure how you can call something a bust when he's only made one domestic signing in MLS, since we're not counting Akam or Colin. And like you said, RJ Allen was only here for emergency situations. So you're definitely not going to count him. But Ernst has had opportunities to sign MLS free agents. He's had opportunities to trade for players that aren't getting much playing time for other MLS clubs. But obviously Ernst sees that these players aren't good enough, and he's not going to waste his time or his resources signing them for the Union. So I guess technically, like I said, we can call it a bust since Joe Bendik's. Hopefully that answers your question though, Renee. I appreciate your question, and everybody that left a question this week. I always appreciate you guys leaving questions whenever I feel like saying, okay, you guys asked me questions. So like I said, Justin Friedberg, he asked, was it as ridiculous as I thought it was to travel to Columbus twice in a season? That in playing New England now for a fifth time is ridiculous. But, that's MLS, right? Like I said earlier, I thought the Union played better the second time against Columbus than we did the first time. But in both of those games, you go ahead and look, and it was just a story of missed chances for the Union, where Columbus has been so excellent all season long at home. They've only given up 5 goals now at home. Yeah, it's ridiculous that the Union played Columbus, one of the best teams in MLS, twice in their home, where Columbus doesn't travel to Subaru Park, where we're undefeated, where we have not made it easy for opposition to come into Subaru Park and get points. I mean, there's no sense of complaining about it because, it is what it is. And MLS is got the reasonings, I guess, for scheduling us to play New England 5 times in a season, playing Columbus, one of the best teams in MLS, away twice. Whatever the reasoning is, it is what it is. And it's definitely ridiculous. And, if we do face off against Columbus again, hopefully this time we'll be at Subaru Park, and hopefully we get home field advantage throughout the playoffs, because in my opinion, the only teams that stand in the Union's way are Columbus and Toronto. 2 of the best teams in MLS, and we saw what the Union did against Toronto at home. We saw what the Union did on the road against Toronto. We've seen what the Union done twice against Columbus on the road, and yeah, we'd much rather take our chances at home than facing these teams on the road. So, like I said earlier, just go out and win. It's literally all you have to do, Union. Go out there and win and get home field advantage. You get the supporter shield, and everybody will be happy. And then my sister, she commented and said, Matt Frieza's goalie, ? Yeah, I mean, it's what I was saying right after the game, right? And it's what everybody was saying. And yeah, as much as we want to say, yeah, no more Joe Bendick. Jim Curtin's going to go with the experience, in my opinion. So, yeah, sorry, Shelby. Sorry, all the fans out there that want to see Matt Freese as goalie against New England. I don't see it happening. But, if you guys aren't following the podcast still, why not do it now? So go ahead and check that out at Free Kick Pod on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Go ahead and check out the website, thefreekickpodcast.com. Wherever you get your podcast, The Free Kick, Todd Lewis. And, this next episode, the biggest preview, of the season. The biggest game in Philadelphia Union club history. Yeah, this game's bigger than the Red Bull game, the playoff game, our first ever playoff win. Because we've got our last game at home against New England, who we've had the number. And if we win, we'll be celebrating our first major trophy in club history. And yeah, you can make a debate about the Open Cup games being the biggest club games in the history of the club. Yeah, I'll definitely hear the Pink House game be the biggest game in club history, but nah, if we win this game against New England, win our first trophy, this was definitely the biggest game in club history, but yeah, it feels like the last couple of weeks. Every game that we played has been the biggest club in the regular season history, so this isn't only the biggest game in regular season history, but it's also, in my opinion, the biggest game in club history. But until the New England Revolution preview, my name is Todd, and this is the Free Kick Podcast.